Hi, let's talk about Zhezhi, what she brings to the table, her playstyle and rotations, some statistics, and whether or not she's worth your pulse. Zhezhi is a Glacio hybrid DPS with her main selling point being fast concerto generation, off-field DPS, team support in form of additional resonance energy, skill and Glacio damage amplification for your next character, and in the context of Jinhsi, the most efficient method to stack her forte gauge to date. Playstyle-wise, you can think of her as a 5-star Mortifi, meaning the main objective after taking the field with her is to fill Concerto as quickly as possible, cast Echo, cast Ultimate, swap out, and enjoy her buffs on your unit of choice. Filling Concerto efficiently requires us to play around her core passive, whose gauge fills up by doing intros and basic attacks. As always, there's a lot of Japanese stuffed into her kit, but to cut to the conclusion, here's her basic rotation. Intro and 3 basic attacks suffice to fill her forte gauge, which you then deplete to summon 3 cranes. Then you consume those cranes by stylishly teleporting from one to the next, in exchange for damage and a lot of Concerto energy. Once all cranes are gone, we cast Ultimate and Echo and swap out. The only difficulty here is to make sure you summon all 3 cranes first before you start teleporting. Once Zhezhi's forte gauge is full, we press Skill, which summons the first 2 cranes, to the left and right of her. To get the 3rd crane, we simply follow up with a single basic attack, which produces the middle one. Converting this into actual inputs, we end up with Intro, Basic, 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 Skill, Basic, Skill, 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 Ultimate, Echo, Outro. Sounds more convoluted than it feels to play. With this rotation, you can be sure that you're picking up all the buffs her inherent passives and signature weapon passive provide. Note that her weapon buff's off-field portion is stronger than its on-field portion, meaning you're rewarded for keeping Zhezhi off-field throughout the duration of her ultimate. Combined with how little time her rotation requires, all of this makes you the perfect partner for Jinhsi. Now, in the context of a Jinhsi team, you can optimize Zhezhi's rotation even more from the 2nd team rotation onwards by foregoing Verina's intro skill and having Zhezhi cast her intro twice per rotation. 2 intros are also enough for max gauge, and in order to close the slight Concerto gap, you just follow up the first intro with a skill cast before continuing your thing on Verina. If you have no idea how this is supposed to make sense, I recommend an earlier Jinhsi rotation guide where I explain why the zigzag or ABCB team rotation pattern for Jinhsi teams makes more sense. Then again, there's an unedited and uncommented showcase at the end of the video, which should speak for itself. Just pay attention to what happens after Zhezhi's very first rotation, which still follows the more standard pattern using basic attacks. I'm sure there are many things you can try with quick swaps and animation cancels, but I like to not overcomplicate things where not necessary. Zhezhi's rotation is very condensed as is. She's self-sufficient and shows no glaring weaknesses you'd have to try and cover up with cancels or swap iframes. Let's now take a look at the more theoretical aspects of her kit. For Echo sets, I remember when Yinlim came out, it was a close race between the Electro and Moonlit set for her in a Kalcharo team. However, the same cannot be said for Zhezhi and a Jinhsi team. If team DPS is your metric of choice, Moonlit is definitely the better option here, even if you use her with Changli as your on-fielder instead of Jinhsi. But if you want to play her more quick swappy and don't care too much about her outro buff, or you think the game's too easy so you play Zhezhi as your main DPS, then go for the Glacio set. No matter which set you choose, Glacio damage bonus on your 3 cost echoes is always the better choice over attack percent. Zhezhi is also one of the few characters where her primary damage type substat, in her case basic attack damage, competes with raw attack percent. Skill and heavy damage barely do anything for her though, and liberation damage does nothing at all, since even her ultimate counts as basic damage. From my experience in the tower so far, you don't really need additional energy regen on Moonlit Zhezhi, but for comfort I'd suggest around 120 to allow for some wiggle room for occasional mistakes or missed hits. Taking a look at weapons next, her signature weapon provides a 20% damage boost over the standard 5-star weapon, which is in line with expectations. The weapon's passive has a very limited general applicability for other rectifier users, so if you already have String Master and don't mind sharing a weapon with Yinlim, I don't think the slight jump is worth up to 80 of your precious pulls. If you have none of the 5 stars but do buy the Battle Pass, Augment is a decent choice, followed by Jinzhou Keeper. Guardian Rectifier is practically a free 3-star weapon and next on the list, so there's no need to look any lower than this. When leveling Zhezhi's abilities, prioritize her ultimate and then her Forte Circuit, because those two dictate 75% of her damage output. Basics, skill, and intro together make up the last quarter. And for skills like these, where the return on investment is low, I usually don't level them past level 6, because those boss materials are better spent elsewhere. Zhezhi's S1 provides some quality of life in form of resonance energy and a small crit rate buff. S2 extends her ultimate by 6 seconds, making it easier to charge 2 Jinhsi beams to full with just 1 Zhezhi ultimate. S3 is a huge attack buff to herself, S4 is an attack buff to the entire team, and S5 and S6 add some serious damage to her own abilities. and S6 Zhezhi deals around 2.2 times the damage of S0. While this is in line with other 5-star units, please don't forget that at the end of the day, Zhezhi remains a sub or hybrid DPS. As an example, considering fully buffed rotations in a Jinhsi Zhezhi Verena team, getting S1 through 4 on Zhezhi has the same effect as getting just S1 on Jinhsi. If you're chasing overall team DPS, always prioritize copies of main DPS units, especially if you're thinking about exchanging your valuable corals for wave bands. For teams, I'm gonna keep it short for now. The meta setup would be to pair up with Jinhsi, but Changli also deals good skill damage, and I'm planning to test her with Lingyang to see if she's any better than Sanhua in that team. Whatever other characters Kuro has in store for us that deal either skill or Glacio damage, Zhezhi will likely be their best support for a long time, but considering current reality, Jinhsi already deletes content even without her best in slot support, Lingyang does have Sanhua, and Changli is forced into a non-quick swap playstyle if you plan to support her with Zhezhi. So I don't think she's a must pull by any means. Then again, FOMO is real, and we saw the faces of Yinlin skippers after free Electro 5-star main DPS was announced. At the end of the day, just make sure you're not pulling out of pressure. Reruns will always happen and there's no rush. And that already wraps up this video. If you have comments or questions, let me know, and thank you for watching.
日向ぼっこの時間ですよ。兵士、虹に身を寄せ。レオ、君の先へ。世の光にひれ伏せ。さあ、絵の中へ。貫きました。逆風を変えます。影の舞い踊る。植物だって生きてるんです。兵士、レオ、全友自在。君の先へ。さあ、絵の中へ。舞い上がれ。風を変えます。太平を迎えるために。日向ぼっこの時間ですよ。